What's going on, everybody? I'm Grumnot,
Hey everybody, I'm Boston TG.
and today we're going to do a set review for Elemental Warfare for the element Water. I'm super excited about this. Definitely by far and away my favorite element. Real quick before we get into the video, I just want to throw this out there. So Boss and I are both going to be doing in conjunction here. We're doing a giveaway on Twitter. I've made a post on my Twitter. I believe Boss has retweeted it. You can see our Twitter's posted down underneath both of our images here. But we're giving away a 6-pack of Elemental Warfare on the day that it drops. I'm going to do a live on Twitter where I go through and I pick the winner. All you've got to do is you've got to like this video and take a screenshot of it, and then go underneath the post that I've posted that can be found on both of our Twitters, and stick your screenshot in there, and we'll put your names into a drawing, and then like I said, I'll do a live giveaway. So we'll give away 6 packs of Elemental Warfare just for liking our video and hanging out with us. What are your thoughts on Water before we get into it too deep? Are you excited about this?
A lot of good new mechanics. Rising Waters is sweet. Recruit is sweet. And a lot of the recurring abilities, as we get into, have also been kind of upgraded on some very strong cards.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. I think about a lot of cards that are in here. There are obviously some cards, I think, just like every element, where we'll probably just zip through them, but there's going to be a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right in. And we'll start with our first card here. We've got Frosicle, um, which is a 3-mana 4/4 with Icicle 5.
Solid mid-range cards. Icicle 5 just means whenever you play it, do 5 damage, anything you want. Could be the opponent's face, could be a creature. I would recommend hitting a creature because about the time on turn 3, there'll be something that you can hit. One big thing about the Frosicle is part of an evolution chain, and effects like Icicle that can kill opposing creatures allow you to chain up pretty smoothly. So you kind of ensure this card lives. To get to the next card, Frost Crypt.
Yeah, so we've got Frost Crypt coming in here pretty quick. It's a 4-mana 6/6 with Blizzard.
Yeah, just like the Frosicle Blizzard, which means you freeze down a creature for a turn, which means they don't do any retaliation damage when you attack it, and they can't attack you back if even it was to live, and they can evolve from it. So yeah, you lock down a creature, maybe you attack it down, get a little bit of defense, and then you can hopefully evolve your Frost Grip to the next one, which is the old Tomb D's.
And we've got our first diamond card coming in. We're quickly zipping through this, and so we'll go over the evolution line and then maybe chat about what we think about the evolution line. But we've got our first new ability, honk honk, and our first diamond card from Water. So this is Toombees. He's 6-mana 8/8, which is a great body, I think, with the new ability Rising Waters.
Yeah, I think we always just dive into like the best evolution chain immediately. It's kind of crazy. But 6 mana 8/8 Rising Waters. So Rising Waters is whenever a card it enters the field, this card gets +1/+1. Very key to note that it sees itself. So this is at the worst a 6 mana 9/9 because it will get the Rising Waters immediately. Finishing off an evolution chain with a huge creature that's not going to do nothing but grow, very not exponentially, but usually faster than you think. You will play more than one card a turn on average, as your opponent will too on average, because their cards like Recruit, we'll see, or things like an Egg will die and make another champion just out of it. Uh, this will easily get out of control. Out of control, as we can see in like in the dark ability, not Raised Dead, but the other one, Rend Soul, Soul Reaper, Soul Reaper.
Soul Reaper, there we go.
Yeah, this thing will get unattackably large, which means they'll have to do something to it, whether that be, Obliterator Hex. But this being the top end of a fairly good chain on its own, I think it's going to be one of the strongest chains in Water.
Yeah, I mean, going all the way back to Icicle 4, you had the 3-mana 4/4 it's effectively going to kill pretty much everything minus, I think, Straw Bash. Maybe Bog that's really playing early. The fact that they're protecting themselves all the way through the chain, I think, is, you know, I think only makes the evolution chain better. But then you get to this Rising Waters card, and the fact that it sees itself, and that's just based on, spoiler alert, some of these things could change, right? I believe we've been told that nothing is completely set in stone. That it's possible that if something is too strong, it could change before the set comes out. But based on what we've seen in testing, is it does see itself. So you start with a 6 mana 9/9, and the fact that you have Icicle going into Blizzard, the earliest you could really get this would be a turn 4 play, where you've used a Lily, you've played the first evolution, and then you've kind of evolved along the way. And the likelihood is that when you play this, you're going to play it on a naked board, where your opponent doesn't have anything because you've already Icicled something, you've Blizzarded something, and now you have this Rising Waters that you've played for 1 mana. If you pair this up with some previous cards that we've seen, like Watura, for example, where it gets Elemental Guard to all of your water cards, which is completely doable on turn 4 with Watura being a 1 mana card. Um, you now have a practically unkillable 9/9 that your opponent has to play something to get an ability to respond to it. It's pretty much guaranteed to be a 10/10. If you have a Watura or some way to protect this, right, you have some provoke, which will come with a new mechanic that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Um, you know, every time your opponent is playing something to deal with your provokers or your elemental guards, this thing is just getting bigger. So I think the expected value out of this is much greater than the actual kind of face value of, and I think this is the same with all the Rising Waters cards, but I think the expected value out of this is a lot higher than maybe what the face value just looking at the card is.
Yeah, these waters are going to rise really fast, especially when you have a deck that is really trying to make a lot of material in just one play. Yeah, these cards are going to get out of control and will be the determining factor in a lot of games.
Absolutely. And I was just really quickly before we zip to the next one. Imagine a world where both players are playing water and you're taking somebody's cards. You're playing immune and then you're making your guy, you're evolving your guy, or something of that nature. I just think that it's going to make for some very interesting mirror matches too. Because you're both going to have some really large Rising Waters. You're going to have some very large champions. You're going to have some provokes, I think, that are going to exist out there. Maybe some people are playing Elemental Guard. It's going to be very interesting to see how these mirror matches play out if you do play the water versus water, because it's going to be really tech based. Like, oh, I have this card that helps me better in the mirror, but maybe that makes my matchup worse against something else. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of, I think, the way that a lot of these water cards play out, because water in my mind is just super loaded this set, and I think there's a ton of great cards here. So we'll zip right on over into Aqua, one of our first Vortex cards that we'll see here in this set. It's a 3 mana 4/6 with Vortex 4.
Yeah, this is part of a 3-card chain here. Vortex is when you play it, it deals 4 damage to opponent. So water is kind of the burn of champions, as it is doing the face damage. And this is part of a pretty good chain. They all do Vortex. This one is pretty okay. The rate is about right for getting your 4 in. We just go right into Aquas and all the way into Aquages.
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah.
we've got Aquas here, which is a 5 mana 6/7 with Vortex.
Yeah, again, the rate's pretty fine for what you're getting. You're getting the 6. When we get to Aquages, I want to mention something about Vortex. I think this is all one big package.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll just zip through the whole set here. So we've got Aquages. It's a 7 mana 9/9 with Vortex 10.
Yeah, Vortex 10 is huge. If you get all of this, that's 20 damage to the face. 7 mana 9/9 is okay. The thing about Vortex, the thing about this game in general, whoever has the most life wants to attack the person with the least amount of life. Like when you have the choice of attacking the opponent's champions or attacking the opponent's face. If you're losing on life, you want to get rid of their opponent's champion because they can attack you. If you're winning on life, you don't care as much. You want to attack the opponent. What Vortex does is changes that dynamic. It kind of changes the fact that they need to attack you when you're winning life total. Vortex makes the life total change and makes them need to attack you more than you can go straight to their face. So in some weird aspects of this kind of tug of war that ChampionsTCG is, Vortex is kind of life gain and kind of board advantage if you time it the right way, especially when you're chaining it like this. If you're playing a water deck and you Vortex someone from 30 to 20, they're going to know that you're coming with more of that. So they want to be more incentivized to remove your creatures and not attack you. So you're getting even more safe while putting the opponent at even more of a disadvantage, even though Vortex itself isn't affecting the board. So I think that's pretty interesting line here, but I think it's going to be a little bit more effective than, oh, I'm not affecting the board, just hitting the face kind of stuff is. I think
Yeah,
it's good.
absolutely. So, you mentioned that tug of war. A lot of the best players that I think we see in Champions do a really good job of pressuring your opponent's life total and ignoring their board in the right times and the right situations. And like you said, this kind of throws a monkey wrench in that, right? It throws your opponent for a loop where now they're going, well, should I really be pressuring the life total? Because now they're pressuring my life total. And that whole dynamic, I think, will be interesting to see. Another thing that I'd really like to point out, and I'm going to fact check myself a little closer to the end of the video, but I am pretty sure that this is the first evolution chain that has all vortex on it. So, for an example, we know all too well, I think, of the Gigaquacks, the Gigaquack line, right? We had Tsunami from Stubby that goes into Quacka's Hydroblast, into the Gigaquack that Vortex is for 14. We've had some standalone Vortex with like Aquan, as well. If you get even into the older sets, we have things like Dracora and Nippa Berry lines. So Nippa is a Vortex 4 that evolves into like Berry, who's got Rush. So it's similar to Vortex, but not the same. So that I think I find very interesting about this line is that it is, I believe, the first evolution chain that is all Vortex. Everything else is like we start with Vortex and move into something else, like Psymist and Psynami, where you go from Vortex into Provoke, or you have Vortex into like the Nippa Berry line. You have Dracora into the Draconius or the Neptunian line, I think it is. And you're getting really, really good rates for these Vortex creatures, right? So one of my favorite cards is Gwarder, but it's a 3-mana 4/4 with Vortex 4. And if we flip back just real quick, we look at Aqua, we get a 3-mana 4/6, which is, we talked in all of our other videos, but it's very key to get above that fungal spores, that five number is very hard to get above. And the fact that this is a 4/6 means that it's likely going to live another turn, right? If you're on the play and you're playing this, your opponent's playing a Fungaroth most likely, or now they're having to commit their booger to your Aqua, which is something that's going to feel terrible for your opponent to do, considering that you only have a number of hex cards in your deck. So it being a 4/6 is huge. And then the fact that you not only are going to get your Vortex 4, the next turn you're going to attack your opponent's face with it, so you're going to get 4 additional damage, and then you're going to evolve it for 1 mana, draw a card, get a 6/7 body, which is fine body if you're evolving. If you're playing it by itself, it's probably not as good, but you're going to get 6 additional damage, right? I think that's where, with a Vortex line, you have to almost calculate that if you make it all the way through the line, you're going to get 1 attack with each creature along the way as well. So, not only are you getting a 20 damage Vortex, you're getting 10 damage worth of attacks as well by the time you get to the end of the evolution chain. So realistically, in a perfect world where you're evolving this, you're getting 30 damage out of this evolution line, and you're drawing 2 cards. Again, there's not a lot of worlds where I think you're wanting to play a 7-mana 9/9 with Vortex 10. Great and limited, but realistically, you're trying to hit the evolution chain here, and with it being all Vortex, I think that's just it's gonna be a game changer. I really do think that.
Perfect world, and it's coming under very optimal conditions. But you do want to play your Vortex decks with a plan and with a good high ceiling, and that high ceiling of just smoothly curving out is good because you'll be playing some other cards. You'll be playing maybe various removal spells, or you're playing just various fillers like your PQs or whatever. But yeah, this is a good game plan to focus on.
Well,
I think it will happen a good bit of time.
and I think with ice now becoming water as well, right? You get some options in freezes, but you also have a 2-drop that used to be really popular in the meta, and I think has kind of fell out a little bit, which is Timber Fawn, right? So in a world, you get a Timber Fawn on 2, and then you get the Vortexer on 3, there's some lines where you're attacking with your Timberfawn and having it die to protect your Vortex line. And then when you get into some, your turn 4 where you're trying to evolve your first Vortex guy, we've got a nice recruit card that we're going to see a little bit later that I think is even going to further help protect the line that you have here to try to optimally get that 30 damage across. Uh, I do think it's playable. It's not the best line, but I think it's going to see some play. But in the sake of time, we're gonna try to keep it moving. I do want to talk pretty in depth about some of these cards, but you know we've got Zapia here, which is a 5 mana 6/8 with Rush.
Yeah, we a little bit more rush coming out of set 5 compared to other sets. I think of getting dabbled into all the elements. This one is coming with a color that wants to go to the face, so a rush creatures appreciate here. 6 is not a low number. The 8 toughness means that you can size it up to, turn 5, you can tax your 6/6 or something and be left with your 6/2 if that's what you're doing. If it comes later in the game, yeah, you can go face. You can go face, and even if it's not going to die, then it doesn't kill them. Uh, they have to deal with 8 points of toughness, or they hit with another 6. So it's pretty well sized. It doesn't have an evolution chain, but it'll be a fine card.
Yeah, I think this will be more of a limited played card. Kind of hold that. I don't want to say Mekra, but very similar, like that type of role. I don't think that it's going to see a lot of standard. I'm not a big fan of Rush and Water, especially in the 5 mana slot and it not being an evolution chain. We've seen other Rush cards like Noms and Slava where you can evolve it, and you get a huge swing of value when you get a 1 mana 6/6 that you can rush with. The fact that you're always going to have to commit 5 mana to this. We talk about it every video, but I stay away from those 5 drops. I really want to get to 2 turns, 2 spells a turn, and some evolution chains and drawing some cards to replenish my resources a lot earlier. So I just don't think it's going to see a ton of standard play, at least not in my mind. But I definitely think it could be very good and limited. So now we've got I believe this is Blue Blub, is 4 mana 4/7 with Vortex 5.
Yeah, Blue Blood sounds about right. And this raid is okay. It's kind of in the middle of the Aqua and Aqueous we just saw. Nothing great, and probably not get played because it doesn't have a really good evolution chain to kind of fit in before or after what they have going on here.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to say about this one. Unfortunately, I think this is probably one of the weaker cards, especially on the diamond rarity that exists in water. So whether it gets to see a lot of play or not, I don't know. It'll probably get played in limited. Somebody will pick it up, but not looking forward to that one. But what I am looking forward to is talking about this new ability. The first card we're going to talk about here is not what I think is the most optimal body for this ability, but this ability is fantastic. So we've got Chumley, and this is a 5 mana 5/8 with a new ability called Recruit.
Yeah, this is kind of the weaker of the recruit cards. Recruit means you get 2 Norits, which are 3/1 provoke creatures. So it's kind of like the Shatter mechanic where you got 2 Ikumb, except you're getting your provoke creatures up front, right when you pay for it. So for your 5 mana, you're getting with 11, 10 worth of stats, which is okay. But what you're getting a lot is they have to deal with these provoke creatures before they can deal with anything else. So it's going to really throw a wrench in their plan. And if you have any cards like Rising Waters or even Wildfire, if you're playing other elements, and things like this can get out of control, just producing 3 things at once, let alone all the power and toughness you're coming with, and the nuisance of them having to deal with the provoke creatures.
Absolutely. So I've got Nordy here on the screen. It's just a 3/1 with Provoke. I think a key note here is that Nordy can also evolve. So Nordy does have an evolution. I have personally tested this. He turns into Trouble, which is just a 4/2 provoker. And while it doesn't seem like a huge jump, buffing your Nordy into Trouble can be very helpful. A lot of what I've seen is a lot of Tsunami, or being able to hit like with Tiruk or what's the other one? Rocknada, and it having 1 toughness, it can die very easily. But it having 2 is a lot more survivability. Obviously, I don't think you're probably optimally playing if you're having to evolve it, but it is a key note. that it does evolve. But overall, I think the ability is going to be fantastic. And I think we're going to talk a little more about it in a different evolution chain moving forward here a little later in the video. So we won't spend too much time on it for now. We'll just kind of keep it moving and move right into Dreamo. We've got 5 mana, 5/8 with Elemental Aegis.
Yeah, I think there's like one element Aegis per element here. Of course, this means you get a stack of Aegis per water card you have on the battlefield. This this will come down at a time where you probably can have already played a recruit card. So you will get 4 stacks of Aegis if you have 2 Nordies and the previous card Chumley in play, which is pretty good. I think Aegis or element Aegis is better in water than the other elements, but the rate isn't exactly optimal. So I'm kind of hesitant to say if he'll see constructed play or not.
Yeah, I don't know that it will, and if it does, it's probably going to be in some form of deck that's built around it. I feel like that if you are playing this in standard, you probably have to build a deck around Elemental Aegis. We have cards like Nibbit and Catfisher that came from the previous set that could, work in well with this, and it could work well with Recruit. But overall, just don't think it's I don't think it's going to see very much standard play. I do think, however, it's going to be a nuisance in limited. The fact that it's got that big 8 toughness. We've seen cards like Mister and Floof be very pivotal in terms of draft when you are drafting the sets. So I do think that this is going to serve kind of that same role where you're gonna get something that's very strong, and Mister can be very very difficult to deal with, even with 1 stack of Aegis, with it being a big. I think it's an 8/8. Or an 8/9, but this is a 5/8. It's got some better survivability. I wish it had a little more power. If it was a 6/8 or a 7/8, it might be a little more viable, but I think at a 5/8, probably not getting a great rate. So, all right, our next, I believe this is an evolution line here. Our next one is Dash. We've got a 3 mana 3/6 with Rush.
So I think this is a nice 1-2 punch combo. We'll get into evolution and splash in a second, but this will knock off a couple small things while surviving, or it can just go to the face while also surviving. 2 and 3 mana plays can get above 6 power, but not always. So this can just hit the opponent and then go right into the splash. And I think the splash is like an extremely strong rate. So let's go ahead and get in the splash.
Absolutely. So we've got Splash here, which is a 9/8 with Blizzard.
Yeah, this is a really great evolution off of what I think is a very survivable evolution. And then of course, Blizzard's gonna just. I don't know what you have in play actually when you play this Blizzard, but Blizzard's always gonna be good. It's not like it's gonna be like a bad effect to freeze down the opposing champion. But I mean, the stats are just so big, and it's just coming off a card deck and I can expect with reasonable accuracy to live through. So this is like a kind of a 1-2 punch that I kind of like.
So I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. I really like Splash and I don't like Dash. So we've talked about it in other videos, but I think when you're looking at a Rush card, right? I think you really want, at least in my mind, I would rather that card be a 6/3. I get that we're as a 3/6, it's probably going to survive and get Blizzard, but the fact that it has Rush, you're getting it, in a perfect world, you're getting to evolve it. But in most cases, you're probably just getting a 3-power attack out of your 3 mana play. And I feel like there are a lot better 3 mana plays that you can kind of navigate to. It borders on the line of playable because Splash is getting such a good rate, and you're reliably probably living, as you said. I just don't know that I could bring myself to play something like a 3 mana 3/6 rusher. If it was a 3 mana 6/3 rusher, I think I would be better. Or if we seen something similar to the Noms lineup, where we got Blizzard on the first card instead of the second card, because this is kind of the opposite, right? We did get Noms that had Blizzard, and then we evolved into Slava last set, where it had Rush and was a 6/6, and I think you get a lot more inherent value out of the more immediate damage coming off of the evolution instead of evolving your 3/6 rusher into a 9/8 Blizzard. Which if you do that, and I think in most cases, you're probably only, just roughly off the top of my head, 25 or 30% to ever evolve your cards regularly, right? So 25 or 30% of the time, you could probably expect to evolve it, just given the different variables that exist. So a lot of times, you're really just getting that 3 mana 3/6, and I'm just not so sure that that's what I want to be doing with 3 mana.
Yeah, I would rather have a 3 mana 6/3, but because that's just a better card on its own. Because you get in your 3 mana, hitting it for 6, and then you have to deal with the 6/3. Kind of what you want your deck to do, kind of up front. But with the splash involved, maybe you just don't even play dash. You may just want to play splash in your deck and just avoid the whole thing. Because splash looks like it's okay.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
rate's pretty good.
it's running at the same rate that I think most of the other cards that we've talked about are. Like, just for example, Urgok is, the first 6 mana card that comes to my mind. It's an 8/9 with a good ability. This is a 9/8 with a good ability. We've got things like Sparagu that are 8/9s with a good ability. So it trades well with those cards. It has Blizzard. I definitely think it could be played on its own, and it may not even need Dash. Um, I could absolutely see that. So now we've got our first Tsunami card, and I think the next like 10 cards we're gonna be able to whip through these pretty quick here. But we've got a 3 mana 4/3 with Tsunami.
Yeah, it's a snail, so it's slow yet steady at the same time. 3 mana 4/3 tsunami is just fine. Like we were talking about, like Stubby, the 2/2 for 2 with tsunami. This is going up the ladder a little bit, and seems to be the appropriate rate for a 3 mana tsunami card to be. Not really much to say. It doesn't have any evolutions. Just,
Yeah, I
just looks all right.
I agree. I'm not sure. I think it's going to get outclassed by some other Tsunami cards that exist in this set, and I think things like Stubby probably see play over it. The rate is probably just fine. I would have rather have seen this on like a 5/5 body like the Craig that we've seen a couple of sets ago, where you get a 3 mana 5/5 with Tsunami. Because given the current state of the format, like a 3 mana 4/3 is just not going to survive very much. And
Mhm.
like, yes, you're getting your immediate Tsunami ability, but like people are playing things like 5/6 Straw Bash for 3 mana. You're getting 2 mana 5/6 Bog. Like, this isn't trading effectively with a lot of things that are being played. It doesn't protect itself really well. But I guess if you need a Tsunami, it's a good card to slot in.
Yeah.
It's just fine. So now we've got our first Hydro Blaster. We have Caldo. We have a 4 mana 6/6 with Hydro Blast.
Yeah, this one does have an evolution, and Hydro Blast is tough to get in standard. Albeit the probably the best card that's in every deck is both for Tinkatron, which is a 5/7. So all Hydro Blast is completely knocked that out. Otherwise, not all decks have 7 toughness creatures just laying around. Uh, with that said, it evolves into another Hydro Blast in the Frankus, which also probably has the same detriments as the previous card. So it's gonna be a tough evolution chain to get real value out of. I think they're just gonna both be solid limited cards just play on their own. You don't really worry about trying to pair them together.
Absolutely. And Frankus is just a 5/5 8/8 with Hydro Blast, as you had kind of already mentioned. And I'm in the same boat as you, right? I just think that this is probably a good evolution chain for limited that you're going to get some value out of, where people are trying to play bombs and you're just trying to keep, toughness down so that you can kill champions effectively and trade out. So I don't think there's much to talk about that. But we've got Drippy coming up here. So this is a 2 mana 4/4, which I think is a great a body on a 2 mana card, and it has Revitalize, which is an ability that came out last set. We haven't talked about this set, but it came out last set, and it never really seen a lot of play or had any traction.
Yeah, I was only on a couple cards on the last set in set 4. I think it might be only on one card here. Maybe they're on 2 cards here. But anyway, Revitalize means whenever this card attacks, you get an extra mana for that turn. So if you play this on turn 2, you can play a 4-drop on turn 3. The previous Revitalized cards were much smaller. The 2 mana version of this was a 1/4 instead of a 4/4. So we're getting like aggressive upgrades on this. And I think if the upgrades are good enough to where like this can attack and beat on something or trade with something that attacks into it, like before, say a Pukey, another 4/4 could just beat it down, and they're left with a 4/3. Now they have to at least trade. But if you're ahead and actually get your revitalized trigger off, you could be like really getting far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you're going to play this card, as a 2 mana 4/4, realistically you're moving to turn 3. You get a world, and this is where some of this theory crafting is going to come into play. You get a world where on turn 4 you have 4 mana, and this card has a very nice evolution line here. It moves into Sumo Drip, which is a 5 mana 8/9 with that Rising Waters ability that we talked about. So realistically, it's a 5 mana 9/10 that you're going to get for 1 mana on turn 3. And we haven't got there yet, but there is a 3 mana recruit card in this set where there is a world where you on turn 3 get to play Sumo Drip that is like a 12/13 or a 13/14 with 2 provokers and another card on the board. And you've really just kind of out tempoed your opponent.
Yeah, if this can attack, get you that extra mana and go straight into Zoomer Drips as a 9/10. I mean, what are they going to do? You're going to play something else. Like you're going to have your 9/10 on board. You're going to have another 3 mana to do whatever. You're just going to be so far ahead. You could play another. You could play Immune. You could play another white card. You could play something that interacts with like a Tsunami card. You're just going to be like having all these options. And it doesn't cost much to put a Sumo Drip in your deck. It doesn't cost much to put Drippy in your deck either. I think they're both individually good cards. You will see like after this card Sumo Drip how good of its rate is compared to our next card. But I think this is like the best Rising Waters cards with for its mana cost and rate. It may not be the best evolution, but it may be most pound for pound better. But I'll see you might have an argument for that.
Yeah, I think there might be an argument for it later, but I think it's very close, right? The fact that you get the 2 mana, you're going to get to accelerate, effectively just skipping your turn 3, I think is good. I'm not a fan of 5 mana cards, but I think in terms of it being a Rising Waters card, it doesn't feel bad to play the 5 mana 9/10 by itself. So it can be played by itself because more often than not, right, I think your Drippy is going to have to, it's going to require your opponent to answer it. And if it gets answered, then you kind of just continue playing out your game plan. You don't get that acceleration. And to me, that's just okay. Like out of my 2 mana card, I want my opponent to expend resources to get rid of my 2 mana card. So if it does absorb a hex or some sort of removal or an earthquake, like I'm probably okay with that. There's not a world where I'm unhappy about that, and I just continue on with my game plan. But the times that you do get to attack with it, accelerate to turn 4, possibly evolve into Sumo Drip and do what I consider to be some very broken things. Like you're probably just winning at that point. You've accelerated so far ahead, it's going to be very hard for your opponent to come back, or they're going to have to expend a ton of resources. And given the right shell, I think that Drippy on its own could just win you the game. Like I do think that there are some games where you just accelerate right past your opponent, and to me that's worth playing in standard. If I can play both cards in the evolution chain and not feel bad about them, and whether it lives or it doesn't, I'm happy with that. That's probably where I want to be. But as you said, that rate compared to the next card that we have on the list, Sardomus, which is a 7 mana 9/9 with Rising Waters. I'm not very happy about this card's rate.
Yeah, it's 2 mana more for 1 power. It's just not really a comparison to the previous card or to the card we're about to see very shortly. Let's go right into Tufus here.
Absolutely. So we have Tufus, and this is a 1 mana 1/1 with Tsunami, and what I very quite possibly think is the best card in the entire set.
Yeah, we didn't even really see much of the Blue Lily except for those people that play Arena because there was only one copy of it. But 1 mana Tsunami is a lot better than a 2 mana 2/2 Tsunami because most of the power is in the Tsunami effect. You don't really care about the body that much. You care that it costs half as much as say the Stubby does. And the effect is so huge. We're going to see abilities like Tempest when we get to air, or even just the cheap chain that can get into this Tidarius coming up. The cheap 1/1 body that, oh, I did everything I need to do. Now I'm just a 1/1. That's the kind of card you want to either turn to your hand or evolve because the body's just so irrelevant. And as you can go into how good the evolution chain is and how cheap it is and how efficient it is, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the mic after this.
Yeah, I'll touch on Tufus just quickly. Again, I don't want to spend too much time, but in terms of my bold predictions, I actually talked about this on my stream yesterday. I 100% believe that Tufus will be a $200+ card. I think there will be people that will be almost forced to play water due to this card. The fact that we always talk about getting to that 2 card a turn chain. And Tufus is by far and away the best card in my mind in the set that gets you to that 2 card a turn play. And it's also, if your opponent's got 3 cards on board, you're getting 5 damage out of your 1 mana 1/1. You're probably clearing a board out or very close to clearing a board out. You're going to follow it up with some other plays. It plays good early, it plays good late. Like there's never a time that you're drawing Tufus unless you're top decking and completely, just absolutely already losing the game, completely behind on board. There's never a time in a neutral board where you draw Tufus and you go, man, I wished I would have drawn anything else other than Tufus. Like it is always just giving you value.
Yeah, Tufus is a 1 drop when you need a 1 drop. Like if you're facing on an egg or, God forbid, egg into White Lily into another egg, and you're like, ugh. You can't do that with Stubby unless you're on the draw, in which case they wouldn't have played 2 eggs. But this will just save you when you need that 1 drop. And it'll also be like, hey, on turn 4, I have a 3 drop and I need to do something about the board, so I'm just gonna play as Tufus. It's gonna be great no matter when you do it.
Well, and
Yeah, it's a curve filler in my opinion, but also saves your behind whenever you're facing down something you can't deal with on turn 1.
absolutely. And I think that the major part about this card, on the surface, it's effectively just a blue lily that many people are going to have access to. I think the difference between 0 mana and 1 mana is negligible. I don't think, in terms of power levels, 0 mana obviously is slightly better, but I don't think in terms of what you're trying to do, that there's a ton of difference in the mana there. And I have often said this, and it's an unpopular opinion. I'm actually not a huge fan of playing the lilies in my deck. I get having a 0 mana play, and I think they all have what I'll consider niche playability. But a lot of times it feels bad if like your first 2 turns you play 4 cards and you have a couple of 0/1s and a 1/1. But the fact, and now we'll kind of get into the evolution chain here, the fact that you can play Tufus and then it inherently can draw you a card and evolve on turn 2 into this, what I consider probably the best common card in the set, to Tidorus, which is a 3 mana 4/6 with Rising Waters, which realistically is a 5/7 as soon as it hits the board on turn 2, is just baffling, right? If you hit it in that curve filler, you get it early, you're able to kind of play Tidorus on to turn 2. If you're on the draw, you're going to have 2 additional mana that you can kind of float out there to play additional things. But Tufus gaining, to me, this feels a lot like a blue lily with an evolution that could just absolutely run away with the game. Go ahead.
Yes, Riding Waters is better the earlier you play it. You say that with any card in the game. Like I played my big thing earlier is better, but Rising Waters is especially better because it gets more curves for the more cards you play and the more cards your opponents play, and they're gonna have to play some stuff to deal with this. So it looks like a 4/6. It's actually at least a 5/7, probably at least a 6/8. And by the time it gets around your turn, I don't even know what it would be an 8/10 for 3 or 2 or 1. It's going to be big. It's going to be a part of the metagame moving forward, especially everybody that has the Tufuses if they can get them.
Well, and I think another great point, right, is for these Rising Waters cards, we've talked about ways that you have to deal with them. It's going to be Hex, it's going to be Obliterate, it's going to be some things that we already have that exist, Slay possibly, but it's going to have to be your single target cards. So if you're building an optimal list, you're probably trying to play Protect the Rising Waters guy. So you're going to have some of those recruits, those provokers, some different things of that nature, maybe some elemental guard. But what I think is very key about this is when you play Tufus, if you're on the play, you spend 1 mana, and then your opponent gets 1 mana. They have a Lily, they could potentially be on 2 mana. There's not a lot of ways to deal with Tufus. I mean, there's a good number of them, but if it's not dealt with and you evolve into Tidorus on your turn 2 and you're on the play, your opponent can never get to Booger, can never get to your Obliterate cards or your Fungaroths, which doesn't even hit this, by the way, which because it comes in as a 5/7. So, like, all of the ways that you would effectively deal with this, unless your opponent is slamming Lily on turn one and playing Bog, there are no real ways to deal with it. So not only are you getting the turn that you play Tidorus to try to protect it, you get the following turn to try to protect it, which would be your turn 3 where you have 3 mana, which is going to open you up to Recruit, which is going to open you up to Elemental Guard. Like, there are going to be ways that you're going to be able to protect this, and it fits so nicely, I think, into the metagame with you, obviously being on the draw, it can be boogered. If you were to play it on the draw, your opponent should be able to be able to booger it by the time you were able to play it. But you can also just hard cast it for 3. Like, a 3 mana 5/7 is fantastic. Like, other 3 mana plays that we have, like 5/7 is a great body and it grows. So it requires an immediate answer. It's going to be a great trade of resources. And if you play Two Fish, you're probably killing something when you play Two Fish. You're not just playing a naked Two Fish usually. And then if you move into Tidorus, you've replaced one of those cards, right? So you're drawing another card with your Evolution Chain, and you're kind of taking resources out of your opponent's hands where they're having to deal with your Tidorus. And I think that is going to shape what I think the metagame will be. I think there's some playability and air that's going to help change a little bit of the metagame, but I do think that this line is going to change the way that Standard is played moving forward.
Yeah, it's gonna be the biggest, cheapest, biggest card that doesn't have any impact the board kind of stuff. It's the biggest rate power toughness card for cheap that we're gonna see in Standard for a while.
Absolutely. So now that we'll kind of calm down here for just a little bit here, we'll get into next couple of cards. I think we can kind of zip through these, but we have I believe that's Lagoon. It's a 5 mana 9/8, good rate with Tsunami.
Yeah, didn't we just see this? Oh, we saw it on a Blizzard. Yeah, this looks about right. We saw some about 5 mana 8/8s, about 5 mana 9/9s in previous sets. This will be about the same. It'd be good in Standard, but they all kind of missed the mark. And I'm sorry, they'd be good in Limited, but they always kind of miss the mark in Standard because there's always a little bit better things to do on 5 than display a big creature with Tsunami.
Yeah, absolutely. Just 100% agree with you there. So we'll move right into the next standalone guy. We've got a rare card called Glama or Glamma. It's a 3 mana 6/6, which I think is a good rate. I'm not very happy with the wealth tax ability just in general, but yeah, that's one we haven't talked about.
Yeah, wealth tax means it deals damage to each player equal to number of cards in that player's hand. So it's going down the burn route with the vortex. I assume you'd be playing in the same deck as this. The body is okay. I've seen bigger, 3 casting costs, bigger bodies on a 3 casting cost card. But I'll play it in like a deck with a full of icicles and full of vortexes. But that's not really my cup of tea, and I'll leave that to other deck builders that want to just go straight to the face.
Yeah, I like water. I don't think that it's going to see a ton of play. I mean, we've seen I think good rates in things like Cheeky that are 2 mana 4/4 with wealth tax where you're really getting early on getting to wealth tax. And maybe there's a world where you're playing some form of dark water where you're just trying to burn the opponent out. But I also am not one to shoot to the face. I much prefer things like Icicle where I have the option to kill my opponent's creature or hit their face. The more options you have are better, and this kind of limits your options a little bit. So not much else to say on that one. So we've got another standalone card here. It's another 5 mana card called Serpento, and it is an 8/5, which is a weird, kind of funky sized body there. But it has Icicle 8.
Yeah, the body's pretty small. I know you like the spooky, but this is a whole mana more. The icicle is more, but I think the mana is a lot more, like you talked about. The jump from 4 to 5 mana is pretty significant, and the jump from like 5 to 6 toughness is pretty significant. Doesn't really meet any of the things that we like, so I don't really see any reason to play this.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't think there's a ton of reason to play it. I know that somebody out there will be the guy that's going to go and build all of the Icicle stuff with Cryogon, right? We've seen the Cryogon line. I think having an evolution chain makes cards like Icicle inherently better with different sized bodies, but somebody will be out there that'll build a Wealth Tax, Vortex, Icicle deck. Just don't think it's going to be competitive. I don't think it'll be played a lot. So we've got another Rising Waters card here, and I think this one is in at a good rate as well. We have Kelpie. We've got a 4-mana 6/6, which inherently, because of Rising Waters, will be a 7/7 when you play it.
This is another Rising Water card. I think they're all pretty good. This one's in the middle of Sumo Drip and Tidarius. I think Sumo Drip just has better natural numbers, while Tidarius is cheaper. I think cheaper matters the most, and I think this is in the weakest spot among all three of them that we've seen so far. So without an evolution chain and without being better than either one of them, I don't really like this one.
Absolutely.
I think you just play a different card.
I'm in the same boat. There's probably better 4-drops to play. There's definitely better Rising Waters cards to play. So with that, we'll keep it moving. And this card, it piques my interest a lot. This is Cthulhu, and it is a 6-mana 8/8 with Elemental Guard. And we haven't talked about Elemental Guard yet.
Guard means this card can't be targeted. Elemental Guard, that means all your water cards can't be targeted by hex effects or trying to target something with a tsunami or a combustion. I think this card is not important in water because we're coming with so much recruit, and provoke and guard kind of do the same effect by protecting the creatures that you want to be protecting, namely your huge rising water cards you want to be obliterated or whatever. So 6-mana 8/8 is fine. There will be decks that kind of get blown out by the elemental guard effect, but as far as your personal game plan goes, I think you can really solve I want to save my big creature by playing recruit cards. It's just that inherent provoke that comes with the Nordies rather than needing a card like this.
Yeah, I think this is probably good and limited if you're building some sort of water-centric deck. The rate for a 6-mana 8/8 is okay. It's, you're only getting 16 in terms of the numbers versus I think most of our good 6-mana cards have been 17, your 8/9s, your 9/8s. And it'll be interesting to see if it gets played. I think just naturally Watura is better. And from my experience with the testing in the water, Elemental Guard, like you said, kind of does the same thing as Provoke with your recruits. So in the event that you don't have a recruit card, you could play something like Watura, which is a 3/1 with Elemental Guard, that kind of serves the same purpose where they have to get rid of it first to get rid of your other cards that you're trying to protect, your Rising Waters cards, etc. So I'm not sure that this one will see much play. It has a much bigger body and does have some more survivability, but I think in almost all cases you probably just want to play the 3/1 Elemental Guard instead of this. So next up we've got Yeasty, and this is a 4-mana 5/6 with Elemental Fury.
I mean, Elemental Fury is nice with all the recruit things. Water also comes with the ability to shatter, makes your 2/2 ice combs. This is kind of the go wide color of champions here. So that's where Elemental Fury, is the strongest. To renote on what Elemental Fury is, it can attack an additional time for every extra water element card you have on the battlefield. So, you just play one recruit card, and that's an extra 3 attacks. That can add up a lot. We always have that on a 4-mana 5/6 body. No, probably not. But it's a little ambitious deck to go into. But when you get it happening, it will be really strong. They can't kill it because you have all these Nordies. They got to get through the Nordies first. Could be powerful, but my feeling is the rate is just too low for me to really hope to get this little combo off. And I'd really just rather pair my recruit cards with something I can count on a little bit more consistently.
So I will say I tried extensively to get Elemental Fury to work previous to this set. So for anybody that doesn't know, I like the community has kind of dubbed me the waterbender. That's I've tried every which way to make water relevant. And the only other Elemental Fury cards in water come in the form of a 4-mana 4/4, which is Draga. And it's a crafted card. It's extremely hard to get. And it has an evolution, which is Dragadies, which is a 6-mana 8/8 that has Elemental Fury as well. And I just like the other sets, as much as I would like for this to be good, I do feel that Elemental Fury a lot of times is a win more card. Um, and I think you're probably just always going to be better to play something like Infinite Strike if you really want to attack that many times, where you're clearing the board and not necessarily just pinging the face. Maybe this finds a one of. The fact that it is a 5/6 means that it doesn't die to Fungaroth, and that was a problem that I had had previously. Was I could never get Draga to evolve into Dragades, mostly because it was on a 4/4 stick, and everybody's playing Fungal Spores, and there's a lot of ways to deal with four. So the fact that it's on a 4 mana 5/6 body means that it might be playable. Maybe I find some list where I can try to stick it in as a one of and just test it out. And I don't think it ever makes a two of in any of my lists, just because I don't want to see more than one of these. I want it to kind of pair well or nice with something that a different plan that I already have. But it's not something I want to see very regularly. So, um, so the next card we've got here, another standalone card. We are seeing our first Shatter ability, I believe, in all of Water. So we have Frostanoth, and it is a 4 mana 6/6 with the Shatter ability.
Yeah, Shatter when it dies, it makes two Ice Combs with Provoke. We've seen Shatter on cards of this relative sizing, like Ice Howl from the last set was one of them, like a 5/8. The lower toughness on Shatter cards generally the better, but they somehow tend to end up with high toughness. I don't know why they just print them with higher toughnesses. But you to get your full value out of this card, which will be 10 worth of power and toughness. I mean, if you get all full value out of your shatters, is a good rate. No, I don't think it's constructed rate, but good rate.
Yeah, I don't think this card will be standard playable. What I will say, and I'll just throw this tidbit in here before we move on to the next evolution chain here, is in my mind, Shatter should work. The power toughness is what it is, but I think Shatter should work that anytime it is attacked or it attacks, it immediately dies and turns into ice cubes. That's just my opinion. So if I were to have a 4 mana 6/6 where and I just attacked once, after the attack it would die and I would get 2 ice cubes. And I think that's the way that Shatter should work. That way that the numbers can be played with. You can make them bigger or smaller, etc. Similar to Shroud, how until you attack it can't be attacked, but something similar where the attack is actually triggering the ability, because as you said, you really just kind of want them to die because you're using them to get the provokers out. So that allows you to get a little bit of value. But we'll move on to Mesma. We have a 1 mana 1/1 with Icicle 3.
Card looks nice. I don't know where it fits in nicely, but this card looks really nice. It's the best rate we've seen for like a cheap Icicle card. I think the last one we had was like a 1 mana 2/3 to Icicle 2. But if you're really just looking for the Icicle to either go to the face or go to kill off something, it can be the best of what we've seen. And it comes with an evolution as well. And I really like my evolutions when you get all the power of it up front and it leaves back like a small kind of irrelevant body. Yeah, those are vulnerable. They don't live through a lot of attacks, but this comes with an effect that you probably are like fending off attacks with. They only cost one. So let's go into
Yeah,
the
absolutely. So
evolution
we've
here.
we've got Mesmerize. We've got a 3 mana 3/3 with Vortex 6. Big Vortexer.
So it looks like we're just going face with Mesma and then smacking them for another 6 with the Mesmerize. So this goes into just a Vortex deck. I really like this line. I didn't see it when we were covering the Aqueous, Aquagenius kind of line. I mean, it seems like a whole designed package. Just if you want to build this deck, just want to go straight to the face and kind of avoid everything else.
Yeah, I think
I
there's
mean,
a
these cards for it.
I think there's a couple of good lists. I won't say good, but I think there's a couple of lists that these fit in, right? The package where you're going face, it could be played in the Rising Waters. I feel like that's more of a mid-rangey, mid-game type of deck that you're really looking for. You're not looking to try to burn a bunch of stuff out. But I also, just off the top of my head, we covered Fire, a couple of days ago when that released, and there's a lot of good Wildfire cards at good rates. And the fact that you get like a 1/1 that you can get a Wildfire trigger and you can deal 3 to the face if you want, or 3 to a creature because it's now giving you options, and then it evolves and also deals damage. In most Fire lists, you're probably being super aggressive. I think it plays really nice into something of that nature. I think there's going to be some definite standard playability for this card.
Yeah, I think Mesma specifically. We'll get into air and we'll get into Tempest. We're bouncing your your own creatures are very beneficial. Just playing cheap things you can bounce. Playing cheap things, I think, going to be really strong just going in this next set. And yeah, Mesmer's going to be a huge part of that. And having a great line with Mesmerize is, just icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Well, our next card is Spickle? Spikesicle? Good luck with it. You got it.
It's like icicle, but spike.
Spicicle?
Spikeisle.
Spikeisle. Yeah, I'm terrible.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with that one. That K's really got me messed up. Either way, we've got a 4-mana 2/2, which, by the way, is a horrible body to put this on. However, it has a massive Icicle 9 ability.
I mean, would you pay 4 mana to do 9 to the face just immediately?
I think we already see some of that, right? Obviously, your combustion, you get to deal 5 to 8 to something, and this is a flat 9. And I think in some terms we've seen people playing the 4-mana combustion cards in some of the more aggressive lists.
Great 4 mana deal 9. A lot of this power is up front. I mean, it's going to kill anything,
everything in the game.
But you can view this as a removal spell. A 4 mana 2/2, just removal spell, or you can kill players, or you can threaten to kill players, or say you can kill their creature. Now your 2/2 lives, and you do one of the many things to bounce Bicycle to your back to your hand. I kind of like it. I don't know. You have to just view it in the right lens, I guess. That is a 4 mana 2/2 that removes something, but there's a lot of synergies too. I think this card is pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah. That huge Icicle 9 being able to choose. I'm very big about having options. So I don't like, from my personal opinion, is I don't like abilities that lock you into doing one specific thing. I like to have options. And Icicle is one of those abilities that I've been very big on because you get to choose where it goes, whether you're hitting a creature, whether you're hitting the face. So it's very situational. And I think that's, having the ability to not only just say, I'm going to kill any creature in the game flat out, but to be able to deal, 9 damage for 4 mana, that's massive. And it's guaranteed 9, right? It's not a random 5 to 8. It's not a, maybe I'm getting 9 or I'm always having to hit the face. Like, you're guaranteed 9 and you get to pick where it goes. And I think that's huge. And I definitely think that this is going to see standard playability. I think it'll also be very good and limited. A lot of people are going to die to this. So our next card is a part of an evolution chain. And I think this is by far and away, in my opinion, probably the best recruit card in the game. It is Whippa. And this is a 3-mana 1/1 with recruit. And on the surface, this card with a 1/1 body doesn't look all that good. You go, I don't want to spend 3 mana to get a 1/1. Or to, realistically, you're getting 6/2 plus the 1/1. So you're getting a 7/3 for 3 mana. Which we've seen on some other cards. But the fact that you're getting the provoke and the fact that it is 3 mana, I think is very key here.
Yeah, I mean, just the raw material. There's 3 things for your rising water effects. I mean, that's not even talking about if we get in the wildfire things like you were talking about as well. And the body's just so small. So you getting all your power up front and what the triggered ability is from recruit. So you get your 2/3/1 Nordies, and that's what you're doing. And your weapon's not gonna die. So I mean, there's so many of these good come into play effects that is begging to be balanced or begging to be raised dead. And this flood of creatures that go with all your effects that want to see you play more creatures. And Whip is just the most efficient of all that recruit effects that we've seen so far.
So one of the key things that I'll note is, this card might be the reason that I think a lot of people end up on water or nature moving into the next set. And that is because it has 1 toughness. If this card was a 1/2, I think it is tremendously better. But the fact that it is a 1/1, it dies to every single tsunami, it dies to every single earthquake. So you're almost forcing your opponent to have an answer, and it's always going to go on top of your graveyard. So your Nordies are not going to go down on the top of your graveyard. This card's going to go down on top of your graveyard. So as you said, it's begging to be raised dead. It's begging to be a card that's bounced where you're getting multiple uses out of the ability. But this card does have an evolution, and I don't think that the evolution is going to get as much play as the actual card itself was. If this was a 1/2, I think the evolution of this card gets played a lot more. And we'll move right into the evolution here. We have Ammonite, and it's a 5 mana 6/7 with Revitalize.
Yeah, maybe if the Whipple is a 1/2, it'd live a little bit more. But this card, if it comes on top of the Whippet, it is very efficient. The problem is it doesn't really fit into the roles of probably the decks you won't have Whippa. You don't really want decks that have Ammonite either, because like this acceleration in mana with your Revitalize if it attacks, isn't really what you want from a 5 mana card or even a 4 mana card because you will play Whip on 3. Then hopefully Ammonite has Evolution on 4. Revitalize is better, like on the 2 drop that we covered earlier. On 5, it gets less important, and I don't really know if it fits in Whippa. So you're right. These don't really go in the same deck, and Ammonite's not really a card I want to play on its own. Yeah, I like the chain if it happens, but I don't think you're going to play them in the same deck. I don't think you're really trying to do the same plan with them.
Yeah, I'm almost of the volition that Ammonite just isn't going to be a playable card in Standard. And again, I think if Whippa was a 1/2, I think we see this card see a little bit more play, and it might squeak its way into Standard. But the fact of the matter is, I think, is you're playing Whippa in a very specific deck, right? It's there to serve a purpose to bring 3 bodies along and get 3 triggers of something, whether that's Wildfire, whether that's Tempest, getting 3 triggers of bouncing stuff back to your hand, etc. I think those are the very specific lists that you're playing Whippa, and I think a lot of the meta is going to shift to finding answers to deal with your provokers. And the fact that it dies along with it, you're never really evolving Ammonite. So if there was a world where Whippa was a 1/2 and I could live through a Raknada or a Tsunami with my 2 provokers that it brings along, I might be more inclined to play this. I agree that out of a 5 mana card on its own as a 6/7, a lot of times I don't want to play 5 mana cards anyway. I don't want a 6/7 that has Revitalize on it. But the fact that you can play it on 4 and then on turn 5 you can skip your 5 mana play and move to 6, we're now getting into that 2 card a turn territory, and I think that's very important. So it could have had some additional play. I just, with Whippa likely not surviving, and if it does, you don't want to evolve it because you want to get the ability more, and you don't want to get rid of, the card itself, Whippa. So you would have to find some world where you want to play Ammonite by itself, and as a standalone card, I just don't think it's very good.
Yeah, a lot of the best chains you want to be able to cast all of them. Ask download strong cards. I think Ammonite's just too weak on that end to really include it in this chain.
Absolutely. Well, we'll move on to this next evolution chain. This is Gabo, and this is very reminiscent to some of our Craig cards, I would say, but with just a little bit of a different ability. So we have a 3 mana 5/5, which is the Craig body, but we have Icicle 4 on this card here.
Yeah, looks similar to a lot of cards we already covered. Yeah, say the Craig body. Craig was 3 mana 5/5. It dealt 3 to something, and one of the rest just Tsunami. It steals 4 something just straight up front. I mean, a lot of times with that Tsunami, you want to kill something specifically on 3 because they probably didn't have a bunch of 1 toughness creatures in play at the time. This can also be a little bit good later because it deals to the face, where Tsunami does not. I think this card's fine. It's just the stats aren't particularly jumping out at me with that key 5 toughness not being out of the range of the fungal spores in the sinker. So I think it's just I think the rate is great. I think the body just doesn't size up particularly optimally for standard.
So in my mind, I think one of 2 things should have happened with this card. This card probably should have been a 3 mana 5/6 with Icicle 4, and I think it sees a lot more play. Right, you want to get to that 6 toughness. You want it to be able to survive the fact that if you're playing it on the play or on the draw on turn 3, it's probably not surviving past your turn 4. So even though it has an evolution chain, it's probably not going to make it there a lot of times. Or we could have left it in a 3 mana 5/5 body, but let's give it Icicle 6 so that it can trade out with Bogs and Fungaroths, and you can get or even Icicle 5, where you can kill some other cards. Because we've seen 3 mana 5/5 cards already be played, right? We've seen those in like Xingho, for example, who's got Steel. So we know that there's a place in the format for a 3 mana 5/5 card. I just don't think that the combination of body plus rate is going to be enough for this to see play. even though it does
Yeah,
have what I consider to be a decent evolution.
yeah. You're not guaranteed to get a card out of Gobo. That's just kind of the problem. You are going into the evolution of Becky though, which is pretty good. Pretty good for 5.
Yeah, I mean we've got a 5 mana 8/6, so it gets above that 5 mana threshold that we have, and it has Blizzard on it.
Yeah, yeah. If you can actually protect Gobo with this 4 Icicle, which I don't think you can because I think his 4 is a little bit lower. And you remove a 3 mana card with, you'll get your 5 mana 8/6 Blizzard. I think that's a pretty good evolution drop onto this Gobo. It's going to be affecting the board immediately. It's going to be affecting your life total immediately. It has a key 6 toughness. Doesn't look bad, but I think you have to have it with the Gobo chain. So I really just have to see if maybe standard shapes up where the Icicle 4 lets Gobo survive, where you can get in the Becky. Otherwise, I don't really see just playing Becky in your deck as a 5 mana 8/6 Blizzard.
I think it'll be. I
So,
think this evolution chain will be really good and limited, where you're kind of forced to play some off meta stuff, maybe some lower toughness things where it has a lot more targets and it's likely going to survive a lot more. I don't think it'll ever squeak into standard. Realistically, I just off the top of my head, that right now in standard, the only thing you're really killing with Icicle 4 is Pukey, which is not really what you want to be doing. I think. Your opponent's already drawn 2 cards. You're instead of being able to fling your four damage to the face, you're spending your 3 mana turn to keep the board clear, but you're behind in resources, and probably just not what you want to be doing. So I think it'll be very good and limited. I don't think it'll be very good in standard. Probably won't see any play. But speaking of
right.
Blizzard cards, we've got one of the better Blizzard cards, I think. It's Bidun, and it's a 3 mana 4/5 with Blizzard attached to it.
Yeah, I think we saw this before in Cryos. It's fine. Um, Without an evolution chain or without playing a card like Astro or anything else that has infinite strike. Um, I don't think it's worthwhile in standard. You probably don't see it that much in limited because of the diamond. I think there's just better options than Biden.
100%. And again, as we kind of referred to this being a 3 mana 4/5 and similar to Cryos, the difference in Cryos, and I think we've touched on this a number of times, but Cryos has an evolution chain. You can start at 1, you go all the way to 8. You're getting inherent value by playing it inside of your deck with that 30 or 35% chance that you're going to be able to evolve along the way and draw some extra cards. You don't get that extra resource regeneration, if you will, with a card like this. So definitely agree with you. I don't think we're going to see it very much in limited because it's not going to be pulled, and I just don't think it's going to be standard playable. So unfortunate for a good slot in the diamonds. But now we have Weddy, and a keynote. We'll throw this out here before we talk about this card. It will not be a rare. Excuse me. It will be a rare. It's already been adjusted in the game. So if anybody had seen any of these cards, all of the Gemini cards will be rare. They were all moved away from Mythic. So just really quickly, this is Weddy. It's a 5 mana 5/8 with Blizzard.
Yeah, not really much to say here. If you evolve it off Gemini, then it will help you get more Gemini hits because Blizzard is good at preventing your Gemini from dying. But you're probably already doing something good to prevent your Gemini from dying. This is not a card you really put in your deck just naturally without the card Gemini. And I don't really know if you really want to evolve Gemini. You just really want to attack with it, get a hit in, and evolve into this.
Right, and
So yeah,
I think I've got Gemini on the screen here. Obviously, it's a named card, an epic named hero here. It has genetic split, and every time you deal damage, you're going to get a new copy of Gemini, and you're also going to get one of the 2 elements that you have from your hero. And I think you and I have talked a lot about Gemini. I think there are better elements to play with Gemini as opposed to water. It's probably not what I'm looking to do, although maybe somebody builds a provoke list where Gemini is getting protected by the provokes with the recruit. So it's just an option of something that you could have coming off of it. But again, not too much I think to say about that. So we'll skip right on into, I believe this is Cyan, and this is the new egg for water. It is a 2 mana 0/4 with hatch.
is it cyan like the color blue cyan.
That's what
Um,
play on words there.
I think this is one of the weaker ones. That, as far as no, maybe it is actually in the middle because water only had one at the moment, right? It only had white as egg. It couldn't have access to blue. That was in set one. It's not quite as strong as say the red one is because you don't have the synergy of playing your arson cards and doing 3 damage to it. You'd also it's not as important as we'll get into the light one because light doesn't have an egg at all right now. So it's kind of in the middle. What cards do you really want to slam say on turn three after playing Cyan?
So the world that I have, so I'm very high on this egg specifically because I thought that water needed another option to really make it viable. So some of my testing that I have done, I think I agree with you. It's probably very middling, but a lot of what I have seen or what I have experienced is I play white on one, and then as long as I'm on the draw on turn two, I evolve white into Whippa, get two provoke guys, and then I play this, and it's all but guaranteed to live through the next turn. And then I'm kind of free to play anything else that I want. And I've drawn a bunch of extra cards, so I have a lot more options, and the board texture is a little different. I definitely think that it can be awkward if you're not really evolving after turn one and you're trying to play it on turn two. It's almost like a do nothing, and you're not getting a huge ton of value. But there are a lot of cards that Water wants to play that I think having the additional egg is good. Just having some additional options. I think later we'll see. I've got a nice little dark water list. I think that I've put together. It's definitely not optimal, but I believe that the water egg plays a pretty good role there and allowing me to continue to accelerate my board. And having the survivability is very good because even now in standard, anytime you play a white, it's just immediately dead. Your opponent will utilize every single resource they have to make sure that your white dies because they don't want to be Zaramath, they don't want to be Cryogon. Some of the things that water is doing, I think outside of light, are some of the strongest things that you can do to when you're getting into 3 or 4 cards a turn, right? You're evolving an egg, getting double provoke, getting rising waters triggers. I think those are probably the second strongest things that you can be doing in the game, other than accelerating to an Aldrich Soy Hammer and smashing somebody's face for 13. I, while it may be middling, I'm pretty high on this and very happy that we have a new egg for water. I would have much
Yeah.
preferred a 1 mana egg, but for 2 mana, I won't complain too much.
When you play an egg, you want to evolve as something that is very impactful, but also is a card you put in your deck just because their cast bonus is very good. I think the next card is fills both those roles.
Absolutely. So we have the crafted card. I believe every set only has one crafted card. Every element in the set. So this is the crafted card. This is Gabenor. It is an epic named card. It's Gabenor the Traveler. He is a 6 mana, 8/9, and he has Recruit. So he's going to bring along 2 of those Nordies with him.
Yeah, this card seems great to play early. You could put a ton of power into play. And it's a very fine card to cast on turn 6. So alongside the eggs, um, yeah, I think it's a very good pair and probably one of the best things to come off of Cyan. I think they're kind of a match.
Absolutely. You can play this off Cyan. You can play this off White. It's a huge body that's going to be very hard to deal with. It's going to bring along 2 Provokers. It doesn't have an evolution chain, so you're always going to have the ability to raise dead it or potentially Tempest it back and recast it. But I find also very important here is that Tidorus is a 3 mana Rising Waters card. So there's a world where you're later in the game where you get to play Tidorus and then follow it up with Gabenor, and you're getting 4 triggers on Tidorus. So you go from a 4/6 to an 8/10, and you're also going to get 2 Nordies and an 8/9 out of that for your 9 mana. And I think out of 9 mana, that's something that I could get behind, right? Like that's I'm very okay with that. I'm happy with where it's at. I will say I think it was a little more playable when it was 5 mana. So it did used to be 5 mana. I think developers thought that maybe it was a little too strong at 5 mana. I thought at 5 mana it came down early enough. There's going to be some interesting turn 5 plays because I think water right now is hurting in the 5 mana slot just in terms of playable cards if you really wanted to play a 5 mana card. Um, and I think there's a lot of 6-drop cards that are very good for water, and all of the other elements I think have very good 6-drop cards. So you're going to have to pick and choose really what you're putting into your deck. But I definitely like this is 100% I think a playable card. It's going to see a lot of play, and it'll be interesting to kind of see I think the way that it moves forward.
Yeah, looks very good. Look good if you don't even have an egg. There's a card, drawing card, just play.
So, well, very quickly, I'm going to skip over the second to last card. We only have two cards here. We're going to go right into the last card because I don't think there's much to say about it. It's Enchanted Stream. It's a 3 mana 0/5 with Otherworldly.
Yeah, not much to say. I like my otherworldly cards to have 9 toughness. Their power, their strength scales based on their casting costs. So in this case, it gets +3/+3 to all your water cards for its casting cost of 3. And the power is always 0. Really, what I'm looking for in my otherworldly cards is that 9 toughness because you can just live through more stuff,
Yeah, and
more attacks.
it having five, like I think when you're playing a 3-drop card, I try to refrain from playing 5 toughness 3-drop cards because lots of people are playing Fungal Spore, Sengar, just lots of different ways to deal with 5 toughness or less. If this was a 3 mana 0/6, I think it might see some play. It's very possible that you could play this in one of your icicle builds. Potentially, you're going to the face builds where you just play it and you get the immediate value out of it. But the fact that the rest of your cards also die to fungal spores probably doesn't line up very well with this guy. Yeah, not much to say there. Very Win Mori, I think. But this next card, I wanted to leave this for last. This was the card that I spoiled on my Twitter. Again, make sure you guys are following both of our Twitters. They're underneath our names here in the video. But this is Madeline's Diary. It's a diamond card, and it's a 3 mana 0/1. It's the equip card for water, and the equip ability that you're getting is Ocean's Wrath.
Yeah, you're gonna have to scrap that one because I know
Sure.
that you make a water creature every turn, but I don't know which
So
exactly water creatures you get.
So absolutely. So Ocean's Wrath gives you a Vortex card every turn. So we've previously seen this on Madeline, the epic named hero, which was a 9 mana 8/8, which is practically unplayable. I tried every which way to make that card playable, and it's just practically unplayable. And the Vortex cards that you can get is completely random. There are 3 of them. One of them is a 4/2 and they all have just regular Vortex, so it's just Vortex 4. One is a 4/2, one is a 6/8, and one of them is a 9/8. So, completely random on the one that you get. But the reason that I think that this is much better, it being in the 3-drop slot makes it good. But the fact that you can equip it to anything is good. And I know that there are some people out there that have been testing in the dev server. I have been testing with this in the dev server. Some people are calling it a meme deck. That's kind of some of the interesting topics that I've had. But the fact that we have Sparky, this was something that Boss sent me. When he found it, he was like, "Hey, what about this? This looks really good." Sparky being a 1 mana card, and then you being on the draw, you play your Sparky, and then on turn 2, you just play your Madeline's Diary, and you never attack with your Sparky. You just leave it there, and every turn you're guaranteed to get either a 4/2, the 4/2 all the way up to the 9/8, and you're going to get a Vortex 2. So you're getting this crazy value for 4 mana, and as much as I know that there are going to be some people that are going to try to build a deck around this, if you are already playing a list that is including water and has dark in it, it doesn't take much to stick a couple of extra cards, right? We talked about actually some of the shrouded lineups. Fief into Slither into Viperous, that's going to be a very common line. One of my favorite lines from Dark that I think is going to get a ton of play. It is a full diamond line. But you're going to have natural ways to just play Madeline's Diary, and it just always be able to give you a card every turn, which is insane. I think it's just insane value that you're getting out of it. And maybe it is memes, but I can guarantee you, and you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to be playing this card.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of setup, but slamming a Madeline's Diary on a shroud creature, any shroud creature, it's just going to be something a lot of people have to deal with. They have to go AoE because they can't target it. And a lot of decks won't have that. And they'll just fold to, just making a huge, not a huge creature, but a guaranteed value creature. And sometimes huge creatures just starting on turn 4. I like it.
Yeah, I like it a lot as well. It's the last card in the set. So, as with all of our videos, we've come to the end of the video where we stick an average number. We're going to rate the set from 1 to 10. So as always, we'll start with you, boss. What do you think about water? If you're giving it a 1 to 10, what are we putting it at?
So there are two different ways to go with water. One is just burning them out. The other is kind of rising waters plus recruit. There's kind of clear design choices here, just shaping out how water looks. Then you have the Madeline's Diary stuff, which is a whole other thing for people who want to try that dark water kind of thing. How's it good as a whole? It has some of the strongest individual cards. Toofus and Whippa, the three mana 1/1 recruit, are some of the strongest cards we've seen. As far as deck focus, I think both deck focuses are decent. I will put it slightly, maybe on par with Dark. Maybe on par with Dark. I think Dark has extremely strong evolution chains, but these have maybe individually better cards with also pretty decent evolution chains. So I'm just gonna give it a, what I give Dark, a 7 or 7.5 or 8.
I think you gave
I'll
Dark
probably
an
give,
8.5.
maybe that's what we average. I'll give this a 7.5, and I think you would probably give a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm giving water the Grimnot stamp of approval in terms of being dubbed the waterbender. It's getting my stamp of approval. And the main thing that I'll point out here, and before I give my rate, I wanna just briefly touch on this. We have done all of the elements and reviewed all of them, and water to me has the most playable cards. I would say I think I counted 22 of the 40 cards in water that are standard playable. Like we've talked about and we've said, yeah, I think this card could see standard playability in, some viable list. And I think most of the other elements have had about a third of their cards or a quarter of their cards that have been standard playable, like 8 to 12 cards. So the fact that a good number of these cards are going to be playable, I think is going to make my rating on this go higher. I am big on water, so water gets the by default de facto probably highest rating that I'll give. I don't think it's a perfect. I don't think it's a perfect element. I don't think it was necessarily developed to be perfect. I think there are some things that could change and be adjusted, but ultimately, I do think that if you were trying to make water good, you've probably done a good job. I'm going to give this a 9. I don't think it's a 10 or a 9.5. I do think there were some things that could be changed in it, but the fact that so many cards are playable, and I think that water has generated some of the most hype of all of the elements so far, I think is a great reason to give it a 9. So that puts us at 8.25. That's a great rating, I would say.
Check out my math. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm much more of a dark guy, so I had that a little bit higher, and you had much more of a water guy. I mean, I could be underestimating a couple cards. I would not be surprised if Watching Rogers is completely outrageous. I have it up very high expectations of it already, but I mean, you're the guy I played with it so far, so I trust your opinion on this
I
more than my observation.
as a final thought, right? I've made a couple of projections. I made a couple of them on my stream yesterday. I think Tityrus could be one of the most played common cards we've ever seen, like even more so than Urgok. I think it's very good. I think Toofus could very well push $200, and people would pay that for it, depending on how many of them and what the pull rate is of Toofus. Small tidbit. I don't know if you even know this, boss, but Toofus used to be a 3/4. It was a 1 mana 3/4 or 2 mana 3/4 with Tsunami, and they had to change it. It was utterly broken. So they ended up having to nerf it, and I think they nerfed it into complete playability and viability. But the other piece that I want to as a final thought here, I think that either Rising Waters or the Toofus line could be the second adjusted ability or first adjusted card that we actually see. So, as everybody knows, Quantum Shift, I think when we were going from Gen 3 to Gen 4, and then somewhere in Gen 4 was adjusted to change from you picking what you taking to the lowest. I think that these abilities and that specific set of cards are good enough that we could see the developers actually go in and change the viability of that line. I do think that they are teetering on being that powerful.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I have high expectations for this set. I think it's going to be having a lot of impact on Saturn in various different ways, even just not like in just water. I mean, this Two Fist Tigeris line is going to be looking good. I'm kind of looking forward to everything that Elemental
Absolutely.
Warfare has to offer.
I've been very thrilled with the fact that I think every set that we've done, every element in the set that we've done reviews on, has some viability in standard. Like I think that we're going to see a lot of new cards and we're going to see a lot of new decks, and I do think that the standard meta itself will change. But on that note, so we'll wrap it up here. I'll open it back up to you. Do you have any final thoughts?
I think I closed out on everything regarding the rating. So yeah, I'm good to go.
All right. Well, everybody make sure that you're following Grimnot, which you can see down here at the bottom. And Boss on Twitter, make sure you go enter in our 6-pack Elemental Warfare giveaway. Just go watch our YouTube video, smash that like button, take a screenshot, put it on the post on Twitter, get yourself entered in. I'm giving away a starter pack to everybody that goes and likes the video and posts a picture anyway, so everybody will get a starter pack to begin with. But make sure that you're around on release day on August 1st, 2024, Elemental Warfare. I'm going to do a big stream. I'm going to stream right before the release of it, all the way through it, most likely. Probably for the first couple of hours as the format changes. So just make sure you're coming and hanging out. And yeah, so I've been Grimnot, and he's Boss MTG, and yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.